Voluntary markets for carbon offsets are growing rapidly. By some estimates, they'll need to grow 15-fold by 2030 to support the investment needed to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees. The scope for corruption in these markets has long been a concern, but corruption risks are evolving continually as the offsetting sector rapidly expands. This project analyses the evolving risks in the sector's verification, certification, and anti-money laundering requirements. In doing so, we hope to make a targeted contribution to a pressing gap in the anti-corruption evidence base.
It's important to say that this project is not going to be assessing whether carbon credits are an effective way of reducing emissions or a central part of the energy transition that we should embrace going forwards. This project specifically looks at whether carbon credits are susceptible to corruption and the measures that we can take to address corruption risk so that people can have confidence in the market.
Our project aims to strengthen the evidence on corruption risks linked to verification and certification in voluntary carbon markets. We'll use this evidence to inform effective anti-corruption interventions and regulatory change so that carbon trading is better able to support rather than undermine climate action. The project addresses research questions that have not yet received sufficient attention as part of a problem-driven project designed to generate actionable anti-corruption evidence. We ask what verification and certification procedures are in place for the major voluntary carbon markets, what role do AML KYC controls play, and how effective are they in mitigating corruption risks? What corruption risks exist around gaps in these procedures, and how does their exploitation vary by location? And how effective are current measures to mitigate these risks? And what changes does the evidence generated by this project support? In researching these issues, we aim not only to fill key evidence gaps, but also to inform practical, real-world anti-corruption interventions in a sector undergoing rapid change.
The project will engage a practitioners working group from the start in order to ensure that the outputs are relevant and produce practical guidance relevant to the industry. We will be producing several papers between 2024 and 2027, a number of commentaries using a range of methodologies from assessing offset registries and databases through a literature review, semi-structured interviews, validation workshops and fieldwork in two countries to assess offset projects and their verification methods. Voluntary carbon markets could play an important systemic role in the energy transition. They currently are voluntary. There's a number of different exchanges, there's a number of different ways of trading and producing offsets and different rules and criteria as to what counts as an offset. But increasingly, countries are looking to offset for statutory purposes as part of emissions trading scheme, and also to reduce the cost of offsetting emissions, so that producers, say in Europe, might offset emissions in somewhere much cheaper to offset, in Africa or Latin America or Asia, and developing countries are equally looking to their offset markets as sources of income and revenue for their own development. And this is already happening. The European Bank for Reconstruction and Development recently closed projects which used carbon offsets to enhance the revenue streams of a project and to make it profitable and bankable where it wouldn't otherwise have been. This makes it essential that the offset markets are credible and that there isn't corruption and fraud within them.